You've arrived at Cozy Side Audio, where dreams begin with a story. Whether you're studying, journaling, or just chilling, this one's for you. If you vibe with this kind of content, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe for more.
CozySideAudio presents The Hollowed Star, Chapter 1. The Descent. The star was not a star. It hung above the planet like a scar in the firmament, the husk of something long extinguished. No heat, no radiance. Just a collapsed core, black against the black, somehow darker than the void surrounding it. The instruments called it dead, and yet its gravity clutched the planet in orbit with a persistence that felt almost vindictive. Captain Elias Ward studied the readouts rather than the windows. The view screens framed the planet below, a muted disk of grays and pale blues etched with geometric scars, but Ward distrusted his eyes. He trusted numbers, vectors, deceleration burn times. He trusted the rhythm of the engines. Still, he could not help but sense that their machinery groaned with unease, as though the ship itself questioned the wisdom of intruding here. "We're locked to descent trajectory," reported Nia Calder, the pilot. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her voice carried an artificial brightness that betrayed the tremor underneath. "Gravity wells stable. No interference. Nothing we can't handle." Her words fell into the cabin like pebbles into deep water. The others listened without replying. On the screens, the planet swelled into detail. Fractured continents, vast tracts of land intersected by straight lines. Impossible avenues cutting across plains, converging into shapes that could not have been carved by tectonics or erosion. "That's not natural," murmured Anika Sorrell, the linguist. She leaned forward in her harness, eyes wide and hungry. "Do you see the symmetry? Look at the grid work. Look at the precision." Lieutenant Rourke Hale, their security officer, made a sound halfway between a laugh and a curse. "Precision doesn't mean friendly. That's a city. Human or near enough. I don't like it." "It isn't human," said Kiran Das, the engineer. He tapped through diagnostics, data scrolling across his displays. No transmissions, no heat signatures, no EM fields, no power grid. It's just there. Structures without systems, shells. Dr. Marin Ives said nothing at first. She sat with her hands folded against her knees, eyes not on the planet, but on the extinguished star that dominated the upper sky. Her silence drew Ward's attention more than the others' comments. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost private. "If the star is dead," she asked, "then why does the planet still have an atmosphere?" No one had an answer. The descent began. Through clouds the color of bruises, the surface revealed itself in unsettling layers. Ocean basins drained to cracked stone, fields of black glass, glittering faintly as though reflecting a light that no longer existed, towers rising like bones from the landscape. They passed above avenues broad enough to land entire fleets, streets aligned to stars that no longer shone. The turbulence rattled their seats. Calder guided them down toward a plaza vast and circular, bordered by structures shaped like teeth. It was the only expanse clear of spires. No ships waited, no signs of struggle. The plaza yawned empty, as though made to receive them. "Set us down," Ward ordered. The ship touched stone with a hiss of hydraulics. Engines powered down, leaving silence broken only by the whisper of recycled oxygen through ducts. For a moment, none of them moved. Hale finally said, "Well, we're here." The ramp extended. A slow groan of metal echoed through the plaza. Sensors had declared the atmosphere breathable, but Ward felt no reassurance in the numbers. He descended first. Boots struck stone, not rough stone, but a surface too smooth, too uniform, unmarred by age or weather. He crouched, ran a gloved hand across it. The material was not quite rock, not quite metal, something manufactured and resistant to decay. He stood again, gaze sweeping the vast plaza. No wind, no birds, no sound of settling dust. The silence had weight, as though the air itself resisted vibration. Behind him, the others emerged. Hale, with rifle in hand, muzzle tilted toward the ground, but ready. Sorrel tilting her head back to devour the architecture with wide eyes. Das muttering into his diagnostic slate. Calder whispering a nervous joke about first steps on alien soil. Ives last, her gaze sweeping the horizon. Unreadable. The city did not welcome them, nor did it reject them. It simply existed, immaculate and vacant, as though preserved in a moment between breaths. This is, Sorrel trailed off, searching for words. It's beautiful. Ward felt the opposite. To him it was not beauty but vacancy, a perfection so sterile it chilled him. He had the uncanny sense of walking into a room staged for guests who never arrived. Above, the starless sky sagged heavy with gray, and at its center, the dead sun hung like a pupil dilated too wide, unblinking, aware. Ward turned to his crew. Form up. We sweep the plaza perimeter. No one separates more than 20 meters. Hale snorted but fell in line. Sorrel nodded eagerly, already snapping images. Das grumbled about power anomalies. Calder tugged at her gloves, murmuring to herself. Ives simply kept pace, silent. Their boots echoed across the stone, the sound oddly sharp in the stillness, as though the city amplified their presence. They circled the plaza. Towers loomed, their surfaces etched with grooves that might have been writing or the scars of erosion. Up close, the grooves revealed patterns repeating in fractal loops, too complex to parse with the eye, as if they were meant for a kind of perception humans lacked. Sorrel traced a groove with her fingers, lips moving as though sounding out syllables. This is language, she whispered. Not ours, but not completely alien either. It bends around familiar structures, almost like it anticipated us. Hale yanked her back by the elbow. Don't touch what we don't understand. She glared but didn't argue. Das scanned the tower's base. His instruments flickered, numbers collapsing into static. He frowned. Readings don't stabilize. Material is interfering with the sensors. It's absorbing the signal, or rewriting it. Ward ordered them onward. They pressed deeper between the teeth-like towers, entering avenues that stretched straight and true for miles. The air tasted dry, faintly metallic. Ward's breath rasped loud inside his helmet, though the atmosphere required no filters. They passed buildings whose proportions unsettled the eye, doorways too tall, windows too narrow, angles that seemed to shift when not directly observed. None showed signs of habitation. No dust, no decay, but no furniture, no objects. Nothing to suggest life had ever occupied these immaculate shells. The silence deepened. Each step felt like intrusion. At last, they reached an intersection where 5 avenues met, converging on a pillar that rose like a frozen fountain. The pillar's surface was mirrored, and when they approached, their reflections wavered across it. But the reflections did not align. Ward stared at himself, but not himself. His reflection stood a fraction closer, head tilted, expression unfamiliar. When he shifted, the reflection hesitated before moving, as though reluctant. Calder cursed and turned away. Hale aimed his rifle at the pillar's base. Sorrel whispered, "It sees us." Ward forced his voice steady. "We keep moving." They broke from the intersection, though Ward felt eyes, not the crew's, not his own reflections following him. The avenues swallowed them, stretching on and on. Time distorted. Minutes lengthened. Distances warped. More than once, Ward glanced back to find the plaza still visible, though they should have long since left it behind. The city rearranged itself when unobserved. He felt it in his bones. Ives finally spoke. "We shouldn't be here." Her voice was quiet, but absolute. Ward turned to look at her, but her expression gave nothing away. She merely stared at the towers rising higher and higher, their peaks dissolving into the gray sky. He wanted to argue, but the words curdled in his throat. Because she was right. Still, they pressed forward, because retreat was not yet an option. Because the city, empty as it was, felt as though it had been waiting for them. Chapter 2. The Empty Streets. The city stretched outward in every direction, a geometry of vacancy. Streets ran perfectly straight, paved with the same smooth stone as the plaza, intersecting at intervals so exact it hurt the eye. Towers loomed at each junction, their surfaces etched with incomprehensible loops of script. The avenues should have provided orientation, yet Ward felt more lost with every step. Their boots struck too loudly against the stone. Sound carried oddly in the open space, bouncing back with an echo that seemed slightly delayed, as though the city considered the sound before returning it. Even their breathing felt intrusive. "Still no EM signatures," Kiran Das muttered, eyes locked on his diagnostic slate. He shook it as though faulty hardware could explain the unreadable data. No power grids, no heat sources. If this was ever a functioning city, it's been cold a very long time. "Cold but not dead," Marinive said softly. Ward turned his head. "Meaning?" She kept her gaze on the street ahead, lips barely moving. "Decay leaves traces, stone cracks, metal corrodes, organic matter rots. But nothing here is eroded, nothing is ruined, it's intact, intact beyond possibility." "Preservation tech?" Calder offered, her attempt at lightness falling flat. "Maybe they froze it in time." Ives didn't answer. Annika Sorrell trailed close to the buildings, brushing her fingers along grooves carved into the facades. The script curled into patterns that spiraled tighter the longer one stared. She whispered to herself, syllables forming in her throat. Hale noticed. "Don't start chanting. Last thing we need is you opening doors we can't close." Sorrell ignored him, eyes wide. It's like they wanted to be understood. Not immediately, but eventually, as if they were writing to someone who would come later. Ward cut in before Hale could reply. "Eyes forward. We keep formation." Still, he couldn't stop himself from glancing at the buildings. Each one different, yet all adhering to the same alien symmetry. Their windows were dark mirrors, reflecting nothing of the street, as though whatever lay within refused to be seen. They walked for what felt like hours. The avenues did not bend. The intersections repeated, plaza after plaza, each identical to the last. More than once, Ward felt certain they had returned to the same location, though Das's instruments insisted they moved in a straight line. "This is impossible," Calder muttered, rubbing her forehead beneath her helmet. "It's like running on a treadmill. We're moving, but the city's swallowing it. Folding space, maybe?" Das frowned. "No anomalies on my end. Distances check out, but..." He stopped, staring at the slate. "Wait, that can't be right." "What?" Ward asked. Das turned the display so the captain could see. Readouts scrolled across the screen. Atmospheric density, pressure, gravity, all steady, except for one line. "Topography shifts," Das said. "The city grid is changing behind us. Every time we pass an intersection, the map rewrites. Streets erase. Buildings realign." "That's not possible," Hale said flatly. "Neither is a planet orbiting a dead star." Ward felt the tension ripple through the group. He made himself sound calm. "We don't stop. We log every step. If the city shifts, we adapt. We only trust what we can see." But even as he spoke, he wondered if what they saw could be trusted. They reached a broader avenue that opened into what might once have been a marketplace. Vast stalls lined the perimeter, constructed from the same seamless stone. But they were empty. No wares, no remnants, not even dust. The emptiness pressed in like a physical force. Sorrel wandered ahead, her voice hushed with awe. "It's like they left in the middle of living. No sign of collapse, no battle, no decay, just absence." "Stay close," Ward ordered, but she barely seemed to hear. Hale moved to intercept her, his rifle held loosely but ready. His jaw was clenched tight, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Captain, I don't like this. Too many blind spots. Too much we can't explain." Ward knew he was right, but retreat offered no more answers than advance. Ives knelt near one of the stalls, running her gloved hand across its surface. She frowned. "Not just absence," she said. "Interruption, like someone switched off the act of living. As if everything here was paused in the same instant." Her words chilled him more than any shadow. A sudden noise broke the silence. A hollow clang, distant but distinct, echoing through the streets. The crew froze. Hale swung his rifle toward the sound. Calder muttered a curse under her breath. Sorrel's eyes lit up, as though confirmation of presence thrilled her. "What was that?" Ward demanded. Das checked his instruments. "No movement on scan. Nothing alive within a kilometer." "Doesn't mean it isn't there," Hale growled. The sound came again. Not random, not mechanical, deliberate, a slow rhythm, as though something struck metal deep within the city's bones. Ward raised his hand. "We hold position." The rhythm faded, replaced once more by silence. No one spoke for a long time. When they finally moved on, their footsteps sounded too loud, too fragile against the stone. The street seemed narrower, though Ward knew their measurements hadn't changed. The air tasted faintly sweet now, cloying in a way that made his stomach turn. At the next intersection, Sorrel pointed upward. Carved into the face of a building was a relief, not abstract loops this time, but a figure. Its proportions were disturbingly familiar. 2 legs, 2 arms, a torso, a head. Not human, but close enough that Ward felt an echo of recognition. Its features were smoothed away, but its posture was unmistakable. It reached upward, as though beseeching something above. "There," Sorrel whispered, almost triumphant. "I told you, they're like us." Hale's grip on his rifle tightened. "Or we're like them." The words settled into Ward's bones like frost. Ives touched his shoulder lightly. When he looked at her, her eyes were unreadable, but her voice was calm. "Captain, we shouldn't stay exposed. Whatever this place is, it notices us. It adjusts around us." He nodded, forcing his throat to loosen enough for speech. "Agreed. We'll find shelter. One of the structures." They chose a building at random, though Ward wondered if anything in the city could truly be random. Its doorway was tall enough for 3 of them to walk abreast. Inside, the space opened into a chamber vast and echoing. The walls were bare, seamless, but grooves ran across the floor in precise lines, forming a grid. Calder's voice trembled. "It's like waiting for something to fill it." They set up a temporary camp, diagnostic beacons, perimeter sensors. Hale stationed himself by the doorway, rifle never lowering. Sorrel sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes devouring the grooves. Das muttered about interference scrambling his scans. Calder busied herself with equipment checks, her humor stripped away. Ward stood in the center of the chamber, listening. The silence was no longer silence. It was expectation. Somewhere in the distance, faint but deliberate, the clang returned, and this time it sounded closer. Chapter 3. Echoes. The night on the planet was no darker than the day. Above, the dead star remained the same shade of black, a pupil dilated across the sky. No moon, no shift in the atmosphere, no stars bright enough to pierce the haze. The crew had no way to tell whether time had passed except for the clocks on their suits and the slow unraveling of their nerves. Inside the chosen building, their lamps cut shallow cones of light. The beams dissolved quickly against the walls, which seemed to drink illumination. The grooves in the floor glistened faintly, as though something invisible swam through them. Hale kept his rifle trained on the doorway. He had been silent for hours, watching, his muscles refusing to loosen. Das knelt beside a beacon, frowning as its data scrambled into nonsense. Calder dozed upright against a wall, helmet tilted back, her lips moving as if in dream. Ward tried not to admit to himself that he could hear it too, a faint murmur threading through the silence. Not the clang from earlier. Something softer, whisper-like. At first he thought it came from the comm system, but when he removed his earpiece the murmur remained, vibrating in the stone. "Do you hear it?" Marin Ives asked suddenly. Her voice was calm, not frightened. That frightened him more. Sorrel looked up from her place on the floor. She had been tracing grooves with a fingertip, eyes feverish. "Yes. Yes, finally." Hale turned, his face grim. "What are you talking about?" "The voices," Sorrel said simply. Ward forced himself to stay steady. "We're not hearing voices. It's resonance. Sound carries strangely in here. But his protest was weak, and they all knew it. Das slammed his diagnostic slate shut. Whatever it is, it's interfering with the instruments. Signal keeps looping back, as if the environment is rewriting it. Ward opened his mouth to respond and then froze. The whisper shifted. It became distinct, syllables forming at the edge of comprehension. He strained to listen. The words were almost his language, almost familiar, though twisted. Echoes of speech molded into shapes not meant for human ears. Sorrel stood abruptly. Her eyes glowed with fervor. They're trying to communicate. Hale barked a laugh, bitter and sharp. With who? Us. They're gone, Sorrel. The city's empty. Empty, she echoed, and smiled in a way that made Ward's stomach knot. Or listening. The whisper swelled. A vibration rattled through the chamber, dust cascading from the ceiling. The grooves beneath their feet pulsed faintly, a rhythm matching the cadence of the unseen voice. Calder jerked awake, gasping. What the hell was that? Before anyone could answer, the grooves flared with light. Not steady light of flickering, like breath moving through lungs. Shapes rippled outward, forming crude figures. Human figures. Ward staggered back, his pulse thundering. The silhouettes on the floor moved in sequence, as though replaying an event. People not human, not exactly, but too close walked across the chamber, their outlines glowing pale. He could almost see faces, almost hear words, but the voices remained warped, slipping out of understanding. Sorrel fell to her knees. Tears streaked her cheeks. They were here. They were just here. No, Ives said quietly. Not here. Not now. This is memory, imprint, echo. Ward wanted to drag them all outside, back to the plaza, back to anything that felt less intimate than this. But his feet wouldn't move. He could only watch as the glowing figures enacted their strange routine. Gathering, speaking, reaching towards something unseen above them. And then abruptly, they dissolved into dust. The chamber fell silent again. The grooves dulled, inert. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Hale muttered, "We need to leave." Ward forced himself to breathe. "Agreed. Gather your gear." But Sorrel shook her head, still staring at the floor as if it might reignite. "You don't understand. This is what we came for. Proof. They're like us. They lived. They spoke. We can learn from them." "Learn what?" Hale snapped. "How to vanish." Ward cut between them. "Enough. We move out." They stepped back into the avenue. The air outside was thicker now, a faint mist clinging to the stone. The city loomed in silence, but Ward could no longer convince himself it was neutral. The buildings leaned, listening. The streets waited. They walked. The mist coiled around their boots, leaving no trace. After some time, Sorrel lagged behind. She kept glancing at windows, her eyes following movements no one else saw. Ward called her forward, but she didn't respond until Hale seized her by the arm. "What do you see?" Hale demanded. She turned her head slowly. Reflections. "In the glass?" "No." Her smile was small, distant. "In me." Ward pulled her forward. They continued. Every street was the same, straight, precise, empty, yet the deeper they went, the more the silence pressed on Ward's chest. His breath grew heavy. He wondered if the atmosphere had thickened, though Das reported no change. At an intersection, Ives stopped abruptly. She pointed to the far wall. Another relief had been carved into stone. Another figure. This one was crouched, hands over its face. Its body language was unmistakable. Despair. Ward stared. "Why show this?" Ives tilted her head. "Because they wanted it remembered." The mist thickened. Ward quickened their pace. As they moved, he realized he could no longer hear their footsteps. The sound was gone, erased. He opened his mouth to speak and his voice emerged flat, stripped of resonance, as though the city had swallowed it. The others noticed too. Panic rippled through the group. Calder clutched her throat. Das slapped at his comms. Hale raised his rifle, eyes wild. Ward forced calm into his gestures. signaling them forward, one foot after the other. Motion was the only anchor left. The silence became total. And then, without warning, the clang returned. Louder this time, closer. It reverberated through their bones, shaking the street beneath them. The mist shivered, shapes forming and dissolving. Ward glimpsed outlines of figures, not solid, not ghost, something between. Faces blurred, eyes too deep. The clang repeated. This time it seemed to come from everywhere at once. Sorrel whispered, though none of them should have been able to hear. "They're calling us." Ward wanted to deny it, to tell her she was wrong, but deep inside he feared she was right. Chapter 4. Fractures in Perception. The city would not let them sleep. They tried, huddled inside the hollow of another towering structure, beacons arranged in a crude perimeter, lamps pointed toward the streets. But rest refused them. Dreams bled into waking, and waking blurred into dream, until the crew could no longer tell if their eyes were closed or open. Ward lay against the wall, his helmet removed, breathing the planet's air. It tasted faintly of iron now, like blood held too long in the mouth. Every time he shut his eyes, he saw the dead star hanging above him, closer than it should be, pulsing faintly as though some ember remained alive within its husk. He forced himself upright. His head ached with the pressure of silence. Across the chamber, Calder sat hunched over her lap, sketching shapes in her notebook. She looked up when she felt him watching. "I don't want to sleep," she admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I'm still here. Same walls, same streets, only wrong." "Wrong how?" Ward asked. Her pencil scratched against the page. She held it out. The sketch was crude but recognizable. The chamber they sat in, the grooved floor, the doorway. But the proportions were warped, angles bent in directions that shouldn't exist. A second doorway appeared in the wall where no doorway stood. "I dreamed this," she said. "But when I woke, I wasn't sure if it was a dream or a memory." Ward gave the sketch back without comment. Nearby, Das cursed under his breath. He slammed his diagnostic slate against the floor, then picked it up again, muttering to himself. "Problem?" Ward asked. Das's laugh was bitter. "Everything's a problem. Readings fluctuate by the second. The city rewrites itself faster than I can log it. Distances change, mass changes. It's not physics, it's intention." Ward didn't like the word, but didn't challenge it. Hale was pacing near the doorway, rifle in hand, eyes flicking from shadow to shadow. He had slept the least of all. His movements were taut, controlled, but Ward recognized the exhaustion in them. Sorrel crouched on the floor, her back to the wall, whispering softly. Ward caught fragments, syllables twisted around their own echoes, half-formed words. He thought they were nonsense until he realized she was repeating the murmurs they had all heard earlier. Ives sat apart from the others, hands folded neatly, eyes half shut. Her composure remained intact, but Ward had begun to notice how often she stared at nothing. Her focus turned inward. The clang had not returned, but the silence was worse. The air itself seemed to press against their skulls, urging them toward fracture. Ward rose. "We keep moving at first light." "There is no light," Ives said gently. He ignored her. "We'll trace the streets until we find a central structure. If there are records, we need to see them." Hale's voice was harsh. "And if the city keeps rewriting itself?" Ward met his eyes. "Then we adapt." When they stepped outside again, the avenues seemed narrower. The mist clung higher now, up to their knees, curling with sluggish purpose. The towers leaned over them, their peaks dissolving into the blank sky. Ward set the pace. Each intersection repeated like a refrain, buildings too similar to distinguish. Still, he forced them forward. After an hour, Sorrel stopped abruptly. "What is it?" Ward asked. She pointed to a wall. Another relief, this one clearer than the others. The figure carved into stone resembled a human form, arms outstretched, palms open. Its mouth was wide, not in speech, but in a scream. Calder turned away. "I hate this place." Ives stepped closer, her expression unreadable. These aren't random. They're a record, a progression. Progression to what? Hale demanded. No one answered. They walked on. The silence grew denser, as though layers of sound had been peeled away until only their thoughts remained. Ward began to hear footsteps out of sync with theirs. Always just one more pair. When he glanced over his shoulder, nothing followed. Das muttered constantly to himself now, reciting numbers. Calder rubbed her temples, wincing at sounds only she could hear. Sorrel drifted toward windows, insisting she saw faces inside. Ives remained quiet, but when Ward looked at her, she sometimes seemed to notice him, seconds late, as though she were watching from a distance. At another intersection, Hale swore under his breath. We've been here before. Ward checked the coordinates. Readings say otherwise. I don't care what your readings say. Hale pointed to a crack in the pavement. I marked that. We've circled back. Das shook his head violently. No, the map is clear. Straight line. No deviation. Ward looked between them. Both certain, both convinced. Fracture. The city was not only shifting, it was shifting them. Keep moving, Ward ordered, though the steadiness of his voice felt hollow. By what should have been midday, the mist thickened into a fog. Visibility shrank to 10 meters. Shadows leaned and stretched. The silence pressed harder. Calder stumbled, clutching her ears. It's too loud, Ward grabbed her arm. What's too loud? Everything, she gasped. The silence. It's screaming. Sorrel laughed suddenly. A brittle sound. Yes, I hear it too. Hale swung his rifle toward a shadow in the fog. We're not alone. Ward strained his eyes. The shadow dissolved, leaving nothing. No targets, so, he said. Doesn't mean they aren't there. Hale's knuckles were white around the rifle. Ward stepped close, lowering his voice. Keep control. We can't afford panic. Hale's eyes burned. Then you hold the leash, Captain, but something is stalking us. Ward turned away. He couldn't deny it. They reached another plaza. In its center stood a statue. It was the first they had seen intact, not a carved relief, but a freestanding figure. It towered above them, humanoid in shape, but stretched, elongated. Its face was smooth, featureless, yet its posture radiated anguish. One hand reached toward the sky. The other was pressed against its chest, fingers splayed, as though restraining something within. The mist curled around its base. Sorrel walked forward, entranced. She raised her hand to mirror the statue's gesture. Hale started after her, but Ward stopped him. Let her, Ward said. Sorrel's palm hovered inches from the stone. Her eyes were wide, wet with tears. They were afraid, she whispered. Not of us, of what came for them. Her words hung in the silence. Then the ground beneath them shuddered. A low vibration rippled through the plaza, deep enough to rattle teeth. The statue's base pulsed faintly, light flickering through cracks in the stone. Das staggered backward. Energy spike! Massive! The pulse grew brighter. The statue seemed to breathe, chest expanding against invisible lungs. Ward shouted, Fall back! They retreated toward the edge of the plaza. The light swelled, then abruptly extinguished. The silence returned. The statue was inert. Sorrel collapsed to her knees, sobbing. It was trying to speak. We cut it off. Hale grabbed her by the arm, dragging her upright. His voice was harsh, but his hands trembled. You almost got us killed. Ward said nothing. He could not shake the image of the statue's hand pressed to its chest, not reaching out, restraining. As if something inside the stone wanted out. That night, if it could be called night, Ward sat apart from the others. His eyes refused to close. Every time he blinked, he saw the statue again, glowing, straining. He realized then that the fracture wasn't only in the city. It was in them. And the city knew it. Chapter 5. The archive. The plaza lay behind them, But Ward felt as though the statue had followed, looming invisibly just beyond his sight. Its gesture, hand to chest, hand to sky, imprinted itself on the back of his eyelids. Every time he blinked, he saw its smooth face bending toward him, straining to open. They walked. The fog thickened until the towers melted into silhouettes. The avenues became canyons of stone, each step swallowed by silence. Das muttered at Ward's shoulder. If there is a central record-keeping facility, it would be here. His fingers jittered across the slate, tapping in loops that seemed more ritual than logic. Every civilization archives, especially one like this. We'll find it. We have to. Ward glanced at him. Das's skin shone with sweat, though the air was cold. His eyes darted, never still. Then lead, Ward said. Das strode ahead, turning corners with sudden confidence. Ward followed reluctantly. The others trailed, ragged and fraying. Hale kept his rifle up, eyes cutting every shadow. Calder limped slightly, a tremor in her left hand she tried to hide. Sorrel wandered at the edge of the group, murmuring phrases in that alien cadence she'd absorbed. Ives walked with perfect composure, but her gaze no longer fixed on the world outside. Ward's crew was unraveling. The structure appeared without warning. A building wider than the street, its facade etched with rows upon rows of symbols. Not decorative, script. The grooves curved in elegant alien strokes, yet Ward's mind insisted on recognizing fragments. Letters that almost belonged to his language. Phrases that itched with familiarity. The archive, Das breathed. His hands trembled as he reached for the wall. Wait, Ward ordered. But too late, Das's palm pressed against the symbols. The grooves lit. Light crawled across the wall, outlining words that shifted faster than Ward could parse. The air vibrated with a low hum. The mist pulled back, recoiling from the illumination. And then, motion. The wall peeled open, stone folding inward like paper. A passage yawned into darkness. Hale swore, leveling his rifle. Not a chance. We're not walking into that. But Das was already moving, eyes wild with hunger. We have to. It's what we came for. Ward hesitated only a moment. Then he followed. The passage sloped downward, narrow and close, stone pressing in. Their lamps cut narrow paths, swallowed quickly by black. The hum deepened, vibrating through their bones. At the bottom lay a chamber. It stretched wider than any they had seen. A cavern of stone carved into tiers. Shelves lined the walls, but they were not shelves of books or discs. Instead, pillars of translucent material rose from the floor, each one shimmering faintly, filled with what looked like smoke. Ward approached one. The smoke twisted within, forming shapes, faces, fleeting, dissolving before he could grasp them. Data storage, Das whispered. He touched the pillar, and the smoke shivered. They encoded consciousness. Ives stepped closer. Her voice was quiet, reverent. Not records of events, records of themselves. Ward felt the chamber lean inward, as though the walls were listening. He stepped back. No one touches anything else. But Sorrel was already at a pillar, her hands pressed flat against its surface. The smoke inside flared, condensing into clearer images. Ward glimpsed figures walking streets, their outlines too close to human. A city alive, humming with movement. Sorrel gasped, eyes wide. They're speaking to me. Hale wrenched her away, his face twisted. Don't! But even as he dragged her back, Ward realized the whispering had returned. Louder, layered, the voices of the store dead, spilling into the chamber. Calder clutched her ears. Too many at once. Das collapsed to his knees, laughing and sobbing. It's all here, everything they were, everything they feared. The pillars flared in sequence, one after another, until the chamber pulsed with ghostlight. Figures rippled in the smoke, crowds, gatherings, arguments, panic. Ward saw their faces turn skyward, mouths open in horror. He saw structures burning, bodies crumpling, something moving among them, that had no shape but hunger. And then he saw ships, sleek alien vessels tearing into the sky, leaving the planet behind. Ward's stomach clenched. They hadn't vanished. They had fled. But fled from what? The smoke answered. Shapes poured from the ground, blooming like mold, spreading across streets and walls, a creeping darkness, fractal and alive, consuming everything it touched. The infection. Ward staggered back. Enough! Shut it down! The chamber did not obey. The pillars burned brighter, the voices rising into a cacophony. Sorrel screamed, words torn from her throat. They're still here! Hale raised his rifle, firing into a pillar. The blast cracked the translucent shell. Smoke burst outward, filling the air. Ward's vision blurred. Faces swam around him, whispering in languages he almost knew. His breath caught in his throat, lungs heavy. He forced himself to move. He grabbed Das by the arm, dragging him toward the passage. Out! The others followed, stumbling, choking on smoke that seeped into their suits, their skin, their minds. They emerged into the street, gasping. The archive sealed behind them, the seam vanishing as though it had never been. The fog pressed close again, thicker than before. Hale ripped off his helmet, sucking in air. His eyes burned. We can't stay. We can't. But Sorrel cut him off, her voice sharp with certainty. We can't leave. Not yet. Ward turned on her, fury bubbling. You saw what happened in there. Whatever wiped them out, it's still here. And it knows us now. She shook her head, smiling through tears. That's why we have to stay, to learn, to finish what they began. Her words were madness, but some part of Ward, some deep, unspoken part, felt the hook of them. Because the archive had shown them not only the fall of a civilization, it had shown them a mirror. That night, none of them spoke. The silence was no longer absence. It was waiting. And in his dreams, Ward saw the infection bloom across their ship, tendrils probing metal, prying it open like fruit. When he woke, he was no longer certain it had been a dream. Chapter 6. Contamination. The air changed. Ward woke to it, an acrid tang overlaying the usual iron taste, a damp heaviness that clung to his throat. He sat up quickly, helmet half raised, and scanned the chamber. The beacons flickered, their light unstable. The walls sweated condensation. A faint film clung to the floor, like mold spreading across stone. He knew before saying it, the infection had found them. Hale was already awake, pacing tight circles, rifle never lowered. It's in here, he muttered. You smell it? You feel it? It's here. Calder coughed harshly, clutching her ribs. Air's thicker. Das sat cross-legged, slate forgotten on his lap, eyes staring into nothing. He whispered numbers, long sequences, broken by shudders. Sorrel crouched near the wall, tracing the damp film with her fingertip. When Ward barked her name, she looked up with eyes too bright. It's not decay. It's alive. It's listening. Ward strode forward, pulling her away. No more touching. She smiled faintly. You can't stop contact. It's already begun. Ward suppressed a shiver. He turned to Ives. Status? Her expression was calm, but her gaze was not on him. It was fixed inward, as though listening to a voice beneath her own. We're compromised, she said flatly. The city no longer distinguishes between itself and us. Hale snapped. Speak sense, damn it. But Ward knew she was right. The infection wasn't invasion. It was incorporation. They abandoned the chamber. The streets outside were worse. The mist clung higher, waist deep, and within it floated motes of dark matter, spores or fragments of ash. The towers leaned as though softened, their surfaces sagging with growths that pulsed faintly. Das stopped suddenly, pointing. Look. At first Ward saw only stone, then he realized one tower wall had changed texture. Patches of it were no longer smooth but fibrous, threads woven into the surface. Calder gagged. It's breathing. The wall pulsed, subtle but undeniable. Ward's chest tightened. The city itself was no longer stone. It was tissue. Sorrel reached toward the wall, reverent. "They left because of this," she whispered. "But maybe it's not disease. Maybe it's transformation." Ward yanked her back. "Stay focused. We head for the ship. Now." The route twisted, streets folding in ways that contradicted their maps. The mist thickened into eddies, curling like tendrils. Shapes moved at its edges, half seen, human outlines dissolving when looked at directly. Ward kept them moving, but Hale grew increasingly erratic. He stopped often, whipping his rifle toward phantom sounds. His eyes darted, his breath ragged. At one corner, he froze. "There! Something moved." Ward saw nothing. "Keep walking." But Hale stepped into the mist, weapon raised. Ward grabbed his shoulder. "Don't break formation." Hale swung the rifle toward him, eyes blazing. For a moment, Ward thought he would fire. Then Hale lowered it, trembling. "It's hunting us." Ward said nothing. He could no longer deny it. They reached a square and stopped. The infection was waiting. The ground was coated in a thick, dark growth, pulsing faintly, veined like flesh. Structures around the square sagged, walls collapsing inward, consumed by the substance. Tendrils snaked upward, vanishing into the skyless dark. At the square's center lay their ship, or what remained of it. The hull sagged inward, coated in the same fibrous growth. Tendrils pierced the metal, curling outward like roots through a carcass. The ship's lights flickered feebly, half swallowed. Calder sobbed. "No, no, no, no." Dust stumbled forward, falling to his knees. "It already knows us. It's inside the systems. We're part of it now." Ward's chest constricted. The reality he had fought to suppress was undeniable. Their exit was gone. Sorrel stepped past them, staring at the ship with awe. "It wants us to stay." Hale raised his rifle, screaming. He fired into the hull, each shot muffled as the growth absorbed the impact. Dark fluid seeped from the wounds, steaming in the mist. Ward seized his arm, wrestling the weapon down. Hale resisted, teeth bared. "It won't let us go," Hale shouted. "It won't!" The ground beneath them pulsed. The growth spread outward, rippling like disturbed water. Tendrils lashed, curling toward their boots. Ward screamed, "Fall back!" They stumbled from the square, breath ragged. The mist closed behind them, swallowing the ship from view. They stopped only when their lungs burned. The streets around them twisted unfamiliar. Ward leaned against a wall, chest heaving. Calder collapsed, coughing blood. Her hands shook violently. She looked up at Ward, terrified. "It's in me." Ward knelt beside her, but Sorrel pulled him back. Her face was calm, almost serene. "Of course it's in us. That's the point." Hale slammed the butt of his rifle against a wall. "Shut her up!" But Sorrel did not flinch. "Why fight it? They failed because they resisted. We can learn to live with it, become it." Ward's stomach turned. He saw in her eyes what he feared most: acceptance. The infection was no longer outside. It had chosen its hosts. That night, or what passed for night, they huddled in a collapsed chamber. Calder shivered violently, fevered. Das rocked back and forth, whispering calculations. Hale muttered, weapon across his knees, eyes scanning shadows. Sorrel hummed softly, a tune that echoed alien cadences. Ives sat perfectly still, her gaze blank. Ward stared into the dark. The infection had taken the ship. It had begun to take his crew. And in the silence, he wondered if he felt it moving under his own skin. Chapter 7. Splinters. Ward dreamed of veins spreading across the sky. They branched like lightning, only slower, deliberate, until the black dome above was a network of pulsating threads. Each vein bent downward, seeking, and when one touched his skin, it split open to reveal an eye. The eye blinked. The vein whispered his name. He woke with a shout. No one stirred. The crew lay in their positions as if frozen. Sorrel kneeling with her head bowed, Hale clutching his rifle in a death grip, Calder trembling in fever, Das muttering figures, Ives still as stone. The chamber felt close, its walls damp with sweat that wasn't theirs. Ward sat up, pressing a hand to his chest. His heart pounded irregularly. He wondered how much of it was his own rhythm, how much belonged to something else. The group was breaking. By the time they resumed moving, Calder was too weak to stand unaided. Ward and Ives took turns carrying her weight, though Ives's strength seemed oddly mechanical, as if her body no longer tired. Das wandered in wide loops, stopping suddenly to press his ear to walls. Sorrel no longer walked so much as drifted, her eyes focused inward. Hale kept the rear, muttering threats to the fog. Ward felt splintered between them, every motion an effort to keep cohesion where none remained. The streets grew stranger. Towers leaned together, their tops fused by fibrous bridges. The avenues warped into curves where straight lines should be. The fog carried motes that pulsed faintly, dim stars moving too slowly to be dust. At an intersection, Das froze. He pressed his hand to the pavement. "It's mapping us," he whispered. "Each step we take, each thought we have. The city's rewriting itself to fit." Ward pulled him upright. "Keep moving." But Das resisted, eyes fever bright. "Don't you see? It's using us as templates. We're the archive now." Ward's throat tightened. He forced Das forward. They reached another chamber, wide, circular, its walls covered in reliefs. Not a single figure this time, but thousands etched in swarms. Each was different, but every face was twisted in terror. Sorrel approached the wall, touching the carvings with trembling fingers. "They remembered the moment of ending," she said softly. "They wanted no one to forget," Hale spat. "Or it wanted us to see this, to scare us, to weaken us." Ward felt both were true. Behind him, Calder coughed violently, blood spattering her suit. When she looked up, her pupils had dilated until her eyes were nearly black. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ward grabbed her shoulders. "Stay with me." She smiled faintly as though she no longer understood the plea. That night, if it was night, they huddled again in ruins. The fog seeped inside, clinging like breath. Das would not stop whispering numbers. Sorrel hummed her alien tune, rocking gently. Calder shook in fever, Ives sitting beside her like a sentinel. Hale paced with rifle in hand, muttering curses. Ward felt the weight of all of it crushing down, his crew unraveling, his own thoughts fraying. When Hale suddenly stopped pacing, Ward knew something had broken. Hale raised his rifle, pointing it directly at Sorrel. "She's already gone," Hale hissed. "Look at her. She's not one of us anymore." Sorrel did not flinch. She smiled. "I'm further than you. That frightens you." Ward stepped between them. "Lower the weapon." "She's dangerous," Hale snapped. "She's letting it in. She's leading it to us." Sorrel tilted her head. "There's no leading. It's already here." Hale's finger tightened on the trigger. Ward's voice cut sharp. "If you fire, you'll tear us apart faster than this place ever could." Hale's chest heaved. For a long moment, silence. Then slowly he lowered the rifle. But Ward knew. Something inside Hale had cracked. Later, while the others dozed in uneasy half-sleep, Ward found Ives watching him. "You can't hold them together," she said softly. "I don't have a choice," Ward answered. She tilted her head, eyes unreadable. "The choice was gone the moment we landed. We're only playing roles until the infection decides otherwise." Her calm unnerved him more than Hale's fury. "You sound like Sorrel," Ward said. Ives smiled faintly. "Perhaps she's closer to the truth." Ward turned away, unable to meet her gaze. He dreamed again. This time he stood in the archive, surrounded by pillars of smoke. Each face that formed was his own, splitting, multiplying, whispering in languages he almost understood. He reached out and touched one. It screamed. The sound split his skull. He woke gasping, sweat soaking his skin. Across the chamber, Calder had stopped shaking. She lay unnaturally still. Ward crawled to her side, pressing fingers to her throat. No pulse. "She's gone," he whispered. The others stirred. Sorrel knelt beside Calder's body, brushing hair from her face with strange tenderness. "No," she said softly. "Not gone. Changed." Ward felt bile rise. "She's dead." Sorrel looked up, smiling with fevered certainty. "Look closer." And as Ward stared, he thought, just for a moment, he saw Calder's chest flutter, a breath that wasn't breath, something moving inside her that did not belong. He staggered back. Das began to laugh, a broken sound. Hale lifted his rifle again, voice ragged. "I told you, it's inside her. It's inside all of us." Ward shouted, "Enough!" But the chamber itself seemed to echo Hale's words, repeating them in distorted whispers. "Inside all of us. Inside all of us." The infection was no longer something they faced together. It was tearing them apart from within. Chapter 8. The Fractured Path. The crew no longer walked together. They moved as fragments, drifting along the same street, but separated by mistrust, by silence, by the growing certainty that each was becoming something other than human. Ward kept to the front, though the weight of command had eroded into something hollow. Behind him, Sorrel murmured in alien syllables, her cadence too smooth, too practiced. Hale lagged at the rear, rifle never lowered, eyes locked on Sorrel with predator's suspicion. Das wandered unpredictably from side to side, sometimes muttering strings of numbers, sometimes stopping to listen to the walls as if they whispered secrets. Ives stayed nearest to Ward, though her composure was not alliance, only distance. Her gaze turned perpetually inward, as though she listened to a voice deeper than any human speech. Calder's body they had left behind. Ward had ordered it, though the order had cost him more than he would admit. She was too heavy to carry, too dangerous to keep. Yet when they turned the last corner, and her body vanished from the ground where they had laid her, he felt a sickness crawl through him. "She walked away," Sorrel said when they realized the body was gone. She said it with conviction, with awe. "She's rotting in that chamber," Hale snapped. "Something dragged her off. Don't make it into poetry." Ward said nothing. The truth was worse than either. The streets grew narrower, the towers leaning closer, their surfaces fibrous with growth. Some walls pulsed faintly, veins visible beneath the surface. Ward refused to look too long. The structures seemed to shift when observed, as though aware of his gaze. At one intersection, Das froze. He crouched low, pressing his hands to the ground. "It's changing the map again. We're walking loops that don't exist. It bends when we move." Hale snarled. "Speak sense." Das's eyes glittered feverishly. "We're not traveling streets. We're traveling choices. Each step is decision, and the city folds itself to match. It's building a record of us." Ward pulled him up by the collar. "Keep moving." But part of him knew Das was right. They came to another relief wall. This one was unlike the others. No humanoid forms, no gestures of fear or despair. Instead, an enormous fractal shape spiraled outward, etched into stone so deeply that the grooves glowed with residual light. Sorrel fell to her knees. "This is the truth," she whispered. "The shape of it. The infection is not death. It's pattern, continuation. They feared it, but they shouldn't have. They should have embraced it." Hale raised his rifle. "Stop listening to her. She's infected." Sorrel smiled faintly. "We all are." Ward stepped between them before Hale could fire. "No more fighting." "Then choose," Hale spat. "Her or me. You can't hold both." Ward's throat tightened. The crew had splintered beyond repair. That night, if night had meaning, they sheltered inside a collapsed tower. The air was thick, tasting of copper and rot. The walls bulged faintly, as though something moved within them. Das sat in the corner, rocking. "Numbers don't add up," he muttered. "Equations break. Constants shift. It's rewriting mathematics itself." He began scrawling figures on the floor with trembling fingers. Ives sat beside him, calm. Maybe it was never our mathematics. Maybe we only mistook it for ours. Das stared at her, horrified. Then we've never known anything real. Sorrel leaned against the wall, humming softly. Her voice slipped between human melody and alien cadence, blurring until Ward couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Hale sat apart, rifle across his knees, eyes wild. She'll lead us straight into it, he muttered. She already has. Ward rubbed his temples, exhaustion gnawing at his bones. His crew was gone, broken into fragments of faith, paranoia, surrender. And he felt the infection in himself too, a faint itch beneath his skin, a pressure behind his eyes. They woke to movement. The wall pulsed, then split. From the fissure slid a mass of fibrous growth, twisting and branching, reaching toward them like roots seeking water. Faces swam briefly in its surface. Calder's face among them, mouth open in silent scream. Sorrel reached forward, entranced. She's alive! She's joined! Hale fired. The blast scorched the growth, but the wound closed instantly, fibers knitting with obscene ease. The mass withdrew, sliding back into the wall, leaving only damp residue. The crew stared in silence, breaths ragged. Ward's voice shook despite his effort. We move now. They staggered through streets that bent like intestines, each turn looping back toward itself. The fog carried shapes again, human silhouettes that watched from the edges before dissolving. Ward began to suspect they were not ghosts but reflections, fragments of themselves, projected ahead or behind. Das confirmed it in his fevered way. I saw myself, he whispered, 2 streets over, watching me, taking notes. Hale snapped. If I see myself, I'll put a bullet in his head. Sorrel smiled faintly. Wouldn't that mean you're already dead? The silence that followed was heavier than the fog. By the time they reached another plaza, Ward knew the group would not survive much longer together. The infection did not need to kill them. It only needed to fracture them until they destroyed themselves. The plaza was empty save for a single pedestal in its center. Upon it rested a slab of translucent material, faintly glowing, as if waiting. Das rushed forward, hands trembling. Data! Another archive node! Ward shouted for him to stop, but it was too late. His hands touched the slab. Light flared. The slab projected upward, forming images in the air. Crowds running, ships lifting, darkness spreading. The infection bloomed outward in fractal tendrils, consuming everything. Faces twisted in terror. Cities collapsed. And then, images of stars, systems, planets. The tendrils spreading beyond this world. Ward's breath caught. The infection hadn't been contained here. It had reached further. Perhaps everywhere. Das collapsed, screaming. His body convulsed as light burned through his veins, shapes crawling beneath his skin. Ward dragged him away, but Sorrel only watched, eyes bright with wonder. It chose him, she whispered. It's choosing all of us. Hale raised his rifle again, shaking. Enough. I end this now. Ward blocked his aim. Put it down. Hale's voice cracked. You can't save them. You can't save anyone. All you're doing is feeding it more. Sorrel laughed, soft and broken. Isn't that salvation? That night they split. Hale stalked into the fog, refusing to share space with Sorrel another moment. Das lay twitching in half-conscious fever, Ives sitting watch over him with strange serenity. Sorrel remained curled in the corner, humming her alien tune, eyes shining in the dark. Ward sat apart, head in his hands. The crew was gone, splintered into fragments he could not mend. And the infection, patient as stone, waited for the final break. Chapter 9. The Hunt. Hale was gone when Ward woke. The fog hung heavy in the chamber, pressing close, damp with the smell of iron and rot. Sorrel slept curled like a child, humming faintly in her dreams. Das thrashed in fever, his murmured numbers tumbling out in fractured sequences. Ives sat beside him, still as stone, eyes open and unblinking, as if she had never slept at all. Ward rose quietly, every muscle aching. He stepped into the fog outside and saw Hale's boot prints in the dust, a trail leading away. He knew at once. Hale had gone hunting. Oh? The fog swallowed distance. The city's towers bent and leaned, their tops fused like ribs in a great carcass. Ward followed the boot prints until they split into three directions, each set identical, each leading down an avenue that curled into shadow. The city had multiplied Hale. Ward crouched, touching one print. It was damp, fresh, but when he lifted his hand, his palm bore a faint pattern. Spiral ridges burned into the skin, fading only slowly. Behind him, Sorrel's voice drifted. You won't catch him. He's part of it now. Ward spun. She stood in the fog, too close, her eyes reflecting faint light. Ives emerged behind her, supporting Das, who stumbled with wide, glassy eyes. You shouldn't have followed, Ward snapped. We couldn't stay, Ives said. He'll kill us if he returns. Better to face him now. Das laughed suddenly, high and sharp. He's already here, everywhere you look, behind the walls, beneath your skin. Ward's stomach nodded. The first shot cracked through the fog, stones splintered beside Ward's head. Hale's voice carried, warped by distance. Step away from her, Ward. She's already gone. Ward shoved Sorrel back, waving for cover, but there was nowhere to hide. Only leaning walls slick with veins, pulsing faintly. Xiao, another shot rang out. Sparks flared from Ives's shoulder as the round glanced off her suit. She didn't flinch. Sorrel called into the fog, her voice calm, lilting. You can't kill what's already joined. You'll only join it faster. Shut your mouth! Hale's shout cracked, half fury, half fear. Ward drew his sidearm but kept it low. He knew Hale wasn't aiming at him, not yet. Hale's obsession was Sorrel. If Ward stayed between them, he could buy time. Oh, listen to me, Ward shouted. We're not enemies. The infection is what wants this. Hale's laugh came broken, unhinged. That's what it wants you to believe. It's speaking through her. It's speaking through all of you. Another shot. This one whined past Das, who shrieked with laughter. He's aiming at echoes, Das gasped. Not us. Not really us. Ward's pulse thundered. They moved cautiously, hugging walls that throbbed faintly, as if aware. Ward caught flashes in the fog. Hale's silhouette multiplied, shifting positions faster than human legs could move. Each image carried the rifle, each aimed directly at Sorrel. Not real, Ward whispered. Illusions. Projections, Ives corrected, voice flat. The infection wants us to doubt what's real. It wants conflict. Sorrel smiled faintly. Maybe it just wants honesty. Hale sees the truth. I'm closer to it than you. Ward snapped at her, desperation leaking into his voice. Stop feeding this. Her smile widened, luminous. I'm not feeding anything. I'm being fed. A scream tore the fog. But they found a figure sprawled across the street, face buried in the dust. For a moment, Ward thought it was Hale. But when he rolled the body over, he saw himself staring back. His own face. The corpse was Ward, jaw slack, eyes open in blank terror. The wound in his chest was a perfect bullet hole. Ward staggered back, bile rising. Das laughed, clutching his sides. You're already dead. We're all already dead. Hale's voice rang from the fog. Proof. Proof she's killing us. Another shot fired. Ward dragged Sorrel into a side alley, rage and terror tangled. This city's making echoes. Duplicates. Sorrel touched the corpse's cheek gently, reverently. Or maybe it's showing us the inevitable. You think choice matters, Ward? It doesn't. We've already walked every path. We're only catching up. Ward shoved her hand away. Don't! But his stomach churned with the thought. What if she was right? The hunt stretched on. Hale's silhouette flickered closer, then vanished, then reappeared behind them. Every shot cracked louder, closer, until Ward could smell the scorched tang of gunfire in the fog. At last Hale emerged fully. Only one figure now, rifle raised. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken, mouth curled in a snarl. "Move aside, Ward," he growled. "I end this now." Ward lifted his own sidearm. "You'll have to shoot me first." Hale's hands trembled. His eyes darted from Ward to Sorrel, to Ives, to Das writhing at her side. "You're all compromised. All of you. Can't you feel it crawling under your skin?" Ward did feel it. The itch, the pressure, the dreams. But he forced steel into his voice. "If you kill her, you'll never come back from it." Hale bared his teeth. "There's no coming back anyway." The silence stretched. Ward's finger hovered on the trigger, his chest heaving. He couldn't tell if Hale's aim wavered from exhaustion or from the infection inside him. Then Hale screamed and fired. The shot didn't hit Sorrel. It hit Das. The bullet tore through his chest, and he collapsed, choking on blood and laughter. Ward roared, firing back, his shot grazing Hale's shoulder. Hale spun, vanished into the fog. Sorrel rushed to Das, cradling him, whispering nonsense syllables that seemed to soothe him as his life drained out. Ives only watched, impassive. Ward knelt, pressing his hand to Das's wound, but it was useless. Das's eyes rolled to meet his. For the first time in days, his voice was clear. "Numbers balance now," he whispered. "We're the proof. The equation closes." Then he was still. Ward staggered back, blood slick on his hands. His crew, his family, was unraveling piece by piece. Sorrel kissed Das's forehead, murmuring, "He's joined. He's safe now." Ward wanted to scream. They left the body. Hale's voice carried from the fog long after. Broken laughter, ragged curses, mutters that bled into nonsense. He was still hunting. But now he hunted all of them. And Ward knew the next time they met, there would be no warning shots, no shouted accusations. Hale was gone. Only the infection remained. Chapter 10. The Siege. Ward could no longer tell if the sound that woke him was a gunshot, a scream, or the pounding of his own heart. The fog clung to the collapsed chamber, dimming even the faint glow from the walls. Sorrel sat nearby, eyes closed, her mouth moving in quiet whispers that were neither dream nor prayer. Ives kept watch at the threshold, though her stillness made her seem more statue than sentry. Das's body lay where they had left it, covered with a torn section of tarp, though Ward could swear the shape beneath had shifted during the night. Another crack split the air, undeniably a rifle this time. "Hale!" Ward scrambled to his feet, scanning the walls, the ceiling, the narrow gaps in the chamber. Every sound bounced strangely, refusing to reveal distance. The shot might have been fired across the city or at their very door. "Move!" Ward ordered. His voice came hoarse, but the old instinct of command pushed through. "We can't stay here." Sorrel opened her eyes. They gleamed faintly in the dimness, reflecting a light Ward could not see. "Running won't save us. He's already inside." Ward clenched his jaw. "Then we make distance anyway." Ives nodded once. She rose without hesitation, hauling her pack onto her shoulders. Sorrel followed, humming faintly under her breath. Ward refused to look back at the tarp. He didn't want to know if it still covered Das or if something beneath had begun to move. The streets outside were narrower now, ribbed with growths like cartilage. The fog pressed thicker, carrying with it a sour sweetness that clung to Ward's tongue. He led the way, every sense straining for sound, sight, any hint of Hale's position. "He'll stalk us," Ward muttered. "He knows how. He'll wait until we're desperate." "Not stalking," Sorrel said. Her voice was calm, dreamy. "He's circling, just as the infection circles us. He's its hunter now." Ward snapped at her, harsher than intended. "Shut up, Sorrel." She only smiled faintly. "Truth doesn't disappear if you close your ears." Ives walked silently behind them, her presence steady, unshaken. Ward felt oddly anchored by her, though he knew her calm came not from trust in him, but from something alien she had already accepted. Another shot cracked the air. Stone flaked from a nearby wall. Ward shoved Sorrel down, crouching low. He's close. But when he peered through the fog, he saw not one silhouette, but three. All hail. All moving in different directions. The city was multiplying him again. They ducked into an alley, narrow enough that the walls brushed Ward's shoulders. The stone here throbbed faintly, as if a great heart beat deep beneath it. Veins of light pulsed with the rhythm. Another shot screamed down the alley, ricocheting sparks. Ward returned fire, his sidearm kicking against his palm. His bullet struck one of the silhouettes. Hale staggered, fell. But when the body hit the ground, it dissolved into mist. Illusion. Behind him, Sorrel laughed softly. You can't kill what isn't separate anymore. Ward rounded on her, fury boiling. Do you want him to kill us? She tilted her head, serene. He already has. The siege lasted hours, or what felt like hours, though time here bent. Every few minutes a shot rang out, forcing them deeper into the ruins. Every turn revealed new silhouettes of Hale, rifles raised, eyes glinting with fever. Ward fired back when he had to, but the figures melted, multiplied, reappeared. Each gunshot ate into his dwindling supply of ammunition. They holed up in another chamber at last, its walls slick with some secretion that smelled of rust and soil. Ward set Sorrel and Ives against the far wall, crouching by the threshold to keep watch. His pulse thundered. Sweat slicked his skin. He couldn't tell which was worse, the threat of Hale's rifle or the infection's steady creep beneath his own flesh. Sorrel sat cross-legged, humming. Her voice echoed strangely in the chamber, harmonizing with itself. Ward snapped at her, "Be quiet." But the humming didn't stop. It shifted, becoming words. Not English, not any language Ward knew, but something that scratched inside his skull. "Stop it," he roared, crossing the chamber in 2 strides. He grabbed her shoulders, shaking. Sorrel smiled up at him, eyes wide, luminous. "You feel it too. You can't deny it. It's already inside you." Ward shoved her away, breathing hard. "Not me. Not yet." Ives's voice came cool, steady. "You're both wrong. There is no yet. There is only acceptance or denial. The difference doesn't matter." Ward glared at her. "Why are you so calm? Why aren't you fighting this?" Her gaze was unreadable. "Because fighting is already losing." Another shot ripped through the chamber, tearing a line through the wall inches from Ward's head. He dove to the threshold, sidearm ready. This time, Hale stood clear in the fog. Only one figure, rifle braced. His face was gaunt, hollow, wild. "Step away from her, Ward," Hale shouted. "She's the infection. She's carrying it straight through you." Ward leveled his pistol. "Hale, listen to me." "No!" Hale's voice cracked, raw with desperation. "You're too close. Can't you see? She's inside you already." The silence stretched. Then Hale pulled the trigger. Ward fired at the same instant. The 2 shots cracked like thunder. Ward felt heat graze his temple, a line of fire across his skin. Hale staggered backward, clutching his chest, blood blooming through his suit. His rifle clattered to the stone. For a moment, silence. Then the fog folded inward, swallowing him whole. His body vanished. Ward stood frozen, gun smoking in his hand, heart hammering. Behind him, Sorrel's voice whispered, "He isn't gone. None of them are gone." Ward turned, trembling with rage and exhaustion. "Shut up," Sorrel smiled. "He'll come back. He's joined now. You'll see him again." They moved on in silence after that, each step heavier than the last. Ward's temple burned, blood dripping into his eye. His mind reeled with exhaustion, fury, fear. Hale was gone. Das was gone. Calder was gone. And he could no longer tell if the survivors at his side, Sorrel and Ives, were still crew, or only hollowed echoes carrying infection's song. He wanted to believe he was still human, still commander, still alive. But the city's walls pulsed around him, and when he closed his eyes, he swore he felt them pulse in rhythm with his own heart. The siege had ended, but the war inside him had only begun. Chapter 11. The vessel. The city quieted after Hale vanished, but not in relief. The silence pressed down heavier than the rifle fire had, a silence that felt like being observed from every direction at once. Ward led the remnants of his crew, if they could still be called that, through a maze of bent avenues and stairways that descended like intestines into the planet's gut. His temples still burned where Hale's bullet had grazed him, blood crusting into his eyebrow, vision blurred at the edge. Sorrel walked behind him, her voice low, carrying a tune that seemed too steady for a throat so dry. She no longer spoke to the others, only to the city. And the city answered. Every turn they took seemed to align with her humming, like stone bending to follow her melody. Ives brought up the rear, her silence constant, unreadable. When Ward glanced back at her, she was always looking past him, as though something further ahead mattered more. They no longer spoke of Hale. They no longer spoke of Doss. Calder was already memory. All that remained was forward. They came upon the chamber suddenly, a hangar carved from black stone, vast and echoing, its ceiling lost in fog. At its center rested a ship. Ward froze. It was not like their vessel, not entirely human, but it bore the unmistakable shape of function. A hull, a bridge, thrusters arched like wings. The surface gleamed faintly as though preserved. The sight stabbed something long buried in Ward. Hope. Sorrel stepped past him, eyes wide, reverent. "It's waiting for us." Ward caught her arm. "We don't touch anything yet. Not until we know it's real." Her gaze met his, shining with fever. "Of course it's real. Why else would we be led here?" Ward ignored the chill in her tone. He turned to Ives. "Check the perimeter. Look for defenses, for traps, for anything." Ives nodded once and moved without a word. Ward approached cautiously, hand on his sidearm, though what a pistol would do against this city's tricks, he no longer believed. The ship's ramp lay half extended, frozen in mid-descent. Its surface bore grooves that shifted when he looked too long, spirals, not human design, but something adapted. Inside, faint light glowed. The interior was both familiar and wrong. Consoles lined the bridge, but their surfaces were translucent, veins pulsing beneath them like living organs. Seats molded into shapes meant for bodies, but not exactly human bodies. The smell was antiseptic and sweet, like blood washed too many times. Ward touched a console. It shivered beneath his hand. Sorrel entered behind him, running her fingers along the walls with a lover's tenderness. "They left it for us," she whispered. "An arc, a way forward." Ward snapped at her. "It's not ours. It's theirs." "Does it matter?" Her voice was gentle, maddening. "A vessel carries what it's given. We are what remains." Ives entered last, her expression unchanged. "It can fly," she said, certainty in her tone. Ward turned sharply. "How do you know?" She met his gaze without blinking. "Because it wants to." They explored deeper. Corridors wound through the hull like veins. They found sleeping quarters with beds shaped to cradle bodies too long, too narrow. Storage bays filled with translucent crates, their contents blurred as if submerged. And everywhere the ship breathed faintly, a pulse in the walls, slow but undeniable. At last they found the control chamber. A central column rose from the floor, its surface smooth, black, reflective. At its top hovered a translucent sphere. When Ward stepped close, the sphere shifted, rippled, and became a face. His own face. It spoke in his voice, but the words fractured. "Welcome. Recorded. Final. Escape." Ward staggered back. The face melted, reforming into Calder, then Doss, then Hale, then a dozen faces he did not know. Each spoke the same words, fractured, distorted. Sorrel fell to her knees. Tears streaked her face. "Do you see? They left their memory here. A key. A doorway. All we need to do is enter. Ward shook his head, heart pounding. It's a trap. It's a lure. Ives stepped forward, studying the sphere with calm detachment. It is both. That doesn't make it false. They found the docking controls. A panel displayed symbols that shifted when looked at directly, coalescing into instructions only half comprehensible. But Ward saw enough. The ship could fly. It could break orbit. It could leave. But the console bore a lock, a biometric seal. Ward touched it. A slit of light scanned his face, then blinked red. Rejected. He tried again, same result. Sorrel stepped forward. It needs one of them, the ones who left before. Their imprint remains. We cannot open it without them. Ward's throat tightened. Then we can't leave. But Sorrel shook her head. We can. The infection remembers. It holds their faces. We only need to give it what it wants. Her gaze lingered on him too long, too knowing. Ward turned away. No, not yet. Not until we exhaust every other option. Ives's voice came low, steady. There are no other options. That night they slept inside the ship. Ward lay awake in the bridge, eyes fixed on the faintly pulsing lights. He could feel the hum beneath him, in rhythm with his heartbeat, though he couldn't tell which led which. Sorrel slept curled against the wall, lips moving in silent prayer. Ives sat upright in a corner, eyes open, unmoving. Ward tried to believe this vessel meant salvation, that it was their chance. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw the sphere's face, his own, Calder's, Das's, Hale's, shifting, repeating the same fractured welcome. Final, escape. The words no longer felt like promise. They felt like warning. Chapter 12. The blooming. The infection no longer hid itself. Ward felt it in the air the moment he woke, thicker, heavier, as though the atmosphere itself had grown lungs. The walls of the vessel sweated with condensation, beating into drops that slid down like tears. Sorrel was already awake, standing before the central column. Her hands hovered just above its surface, trembling with restrained devotion. She hadn't slept. Ward knew this now. He wasn't sure she slept at all anymore. Ives stood by the ramp, silent as always, but when Ward rose to join her, she spoke without turning. It's inside, she said. Ward frowned. What is? The ship. She looked at him then, eyes flat and unreadable. Or we are inside it. Does the difference matter? Ward wanted to argue, to insist on boundaries, categories, maps, but none of those held weight anymore. He said nothing. Why? They tried the console again. The sphere pulsed, shifting faces in and out of existence, repeating its fractured message. Each time Ward touched the seal, it denied him. Sorrel's patience had frayed into ecstasy. Her laughter spilled too easily, bright and brittle. It asks for them, she said. The departed, the ones who left their mark behind. Don't you see? The infection is the key. It remembers them better than they remembered themselves. Ward's jaw ached from clenching. You're saying we have to give ourselves to it, to let it take us. Not all of us. Her voice softened. Just one. Ives stepped closer to the console, her face reflected in the sphere's liquid surface. It's already chosen. Ward stiffened. No, we're not doing that. Not unless there's no other way. Sorrel's smile held no warmth. There is no other way. You feel it. I see it in you. The city hums louder every hour. The ship is the last note of its song. That day the city changed around them. Through the open ramp, Ward saw structures collapsing and reassembling in the distance, as though the architecture itself was molting. Towers bent inward like stalks. Bridges sprouted growths that resembled muscle. The infection was blooming. At dusk, a sound rose from the streets, a low resonance that vibrated Ward's ribs. He pressed his palms to the walls of the vessel and felt the same sound humming there, in perfect pitch. Sorrel joined the resonance with her own voice. She sang into it, a wordless melody, and the walls of the ship pulsed in response. Ward grabbed her shoulders, shaking her. Stop! You're feeding it! Her eyes were wide, ecstatic. It doesn't need feeding. It only needs remembering. Don't you see? This planet is its body. We are the intruders. The infection is not sickness. It is the host. Ward shoved her back, trembling. Then what killed them? What made them flee? Sorrel only smiled, lips cracked. What makes a seed leave the soil? Night fell. They gathered in the bridge, the three of them circled by the ship's quiet pulse. Ward tried to keep watch, but exhaustion blurred the edges of his thoughts. He dreamt with his eyes open. The ship unfolded around him, its corridors lengthening into streets, its walls sprouting windows. Through them, he saw not the city outside, but other places, deserts, oceans, mountains, and in each, a shadow of himself walking. When he blinked, the visions vanished, leaving only Sorrel's face close to his own. "You don't have to fear it," she whispered. "It will carry us. One of us must simply show the way." Ward pushed her back, breath ragged. "If you believe so much, why not you?" Her expression faltered, just for a moment. Then the smile returned. "It hasn't asked me." The choice revealed itself the next morning. Ward woke to find the ramp sealed. The ship had closed itself, trapping them within. Ives stood at the console, her hand resting on the biometric lock. The sphere showed her face, over and over, layering upon itself in flickering echoes. Ward rushed forward. "Stop! You don't know what it will do." Her gaze was calm, resolute. "I know enough. It has my imprint. It has since the beginning. That's why I've been untouched." Sorrel's voice rose in awe. Yes, of course. You've been walking its path all along." Ward grabbed Ives's arm, desperate. "If you do this, you won't come back." She met his eyes. "I was never coming back, Ward." The sphere pulsed. The air thickened, vibrating with sound. The console drank Ives's image, warping her features until she was both herself and not, her outline dissolving into light. She did not scream. She did not resist. She simply let go. And the ship accepted her. The ramp opened. Fresh air surged inside, though it carried the sweetness of rot. Outside, the city bowed inward, buildings leaning toward the vessel as though in worship. Sorrel fell to her knees, tears streaking her cheeks. She has become the key. Ward stood frozen, hollowed. He could still feel Ives's hand under his, the moment before it vanished. The console glowed green. The ship hummed louder, thrusters stirring dust in the hangar. It was ready. But Ward knew what readiness meant. The infection did not want them to leave. It wanted to leave through them. He saw it in the shifting walls, in the pulsing light, in the way the console now bore not Ives's face but his own. Sorrel was already climbing into the pilot's chair, her hands trembling with fervor. "We're free, Ward! We're free!" Ward staggered back, bile rising. "No, we're not free. We're vessels." The ship shuddered, its pulse quickening. The city's resonance grew deafening, vibrating through every nerve in his body. And Ward understood at last that escape would not mean salvation. It would mean carrying the infection into the stars. Chapter 13. The Leaving. The ship no longer waited. It pulsed with momentum, as though the decision had already been made, and Ward was only pretending to delay it. The hangar shook around them, walls flexing like muscle in a seizure. Outside, the city leaned ever closer, towers bowing, streets folding inward, converging like petals around a blooming core. Sorrel was already seated at the helm. Her fingers hovered over the translucent controls, but she did not guide them. The vessel guided her. Her movements were mimicry, ritual, a child pretending to steer while the current bore her forward. Ward remained standing, swaying with the tremor of the floor. He could still feel Ives's absence in the air, as though her shape had been carved out of reality and left hollow. The console showed her face once, briefly, before it blurred into his again. The hum grew louder. Thrusters ignited, their light a cold white, casting shadows that clung unnaturally to the walls. The ramp sealed itself. They were leaving. Ward staggered to Sorrel's side, grabbing her shoulder. "Stop this! You don't understand! This isn't escape!" Her head turned slowly, too slowly like a puppet forced into motion. Her eyes were wide, pupils dilated until only a thin ring of iris remained. "It is escape," she whispered. "It is continuation. It is inheritance." Ward shook her, desperate. "It's infection. You're letting it spread." Her smile cracked wider. "And what is a seed, Ward, if not infection that the soil welcomes?" The ship rose. Gravity bent. Ward fell to his knees, clutching the railing as the vessel lifted from the hangar floor. The sound was deafening, though it was less noise than resonance, a pressure that seemed to emanate from inside his skull. Through the viewport, the city folded downward, structures collapsing as though in supplication. Ward pressed his hands against the glass. We can't take it beyond this place. It'll consume everything." But the ship did not listen. It surged upward, through the crumbling ceiling, into the dead sky. The planet stretched out below them, a wasteland of collapsed towers, rivers of black glass, landscapes that seemed more wound than Earth. And then Ward saw it. The infection was not confined to the city. It had spread far wider. The planet's crust bulged in places like tumors. Canyons pulsed faintly, as though veins of light ran beneath them. The entire world was blooming, Sorrel sang. Her voice wove with the ship's hum, harmonizing in tones Ward's ears should not have understood. The vessel pulsed brighter, responding to her song. She turned her head toward him, face stretched with joy. "It chose us, Ward. Don't you feel it? We are the Ark." Ward stumbled forward, rage and terror breaking through exhaustion. He seized her wrists, tearing them from the controls. Her scream tore through the chamber, not of pain, but betrayal. "You would deny the universe its inheritance?" she spat. Her voice was not entirely hers. It was layered, doubled, tripled. "You would hoard this gift in the soil of a dead star?" Ward held her arms, pinned, trembling. "If the universe is to inherit this, then it should die in silence." Her mouth opened wider than human jaws allowed. The hum roared through her, and the ship shuddered in sympathy. For a moment, Ward thought the vessel would turn on him, expel him, consume him as it had Ives. But instead, the sphere pulsed once, then dimmed. The controls went dark. The thrusters stilled. They hovered in orbit, suspended between the dead planet and the abyss. Ward released Sorrel, stumbling back. She crumpled, chest heaving, eyes rolled white. The silence pressed in, heavier than any sound. Ward approached the console, heart hammering. The sphere flickered once, then steadied. It showed his face again, but warped, veins of darkness crawling across his skin. The words came fractured, as always. "Final. Escape. Final. Escape." Ward stared at it, at his own face breaking apart, reforming into something unrecognizable. He understood. The infection did not need to trick them. It only needed patience. They had already breathed it, touched it, dreamed it. They had carried it into the vessel the moment they entered. The ship was no ark. It was already a seed. Ward collapsed into the pilot's chair. His reflection in the console shifted, showing not just him, but Sorrel, Ives, Calder, Das, Hale, faces layered in infinite rotation. The hum returned, softer now, almost tender. He pressed his hands to the controls. Outside, the stars stretched in silence, infinite, waiting. He thought of Earth, of blue oceans, forests swaying, cities breathing with billions of lives, unaware of what lurked among them. His hands trembled. He could stop it here, drive the ship back into the planet, burn it, bury it in the soil it had claimed. Or he could let it carry him forward, carry them forward. Sorrel stirred behind him, her voice raw, broken, but still singing. "We are the Ark, Ward. We are the bloom." Ward closed his eyes. The thrusters reignited. The ship turned from the dead star, and in silence it leapt into the dark.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, stay safe.